Hello to whoever is listening. I am back again, and I honestly wish and hope that I am not being gone for too long anymore. But I'm excited. I'm looking forward for this episode. I think that there's a lot of things that I want to say. It's been some interesting few months that I have been experiencing, and a lot of learning has come from it. I think that I was tested with many things that I knew that I was going to be tested with, and I was like, easy, but it was not. I ended up failing some things, and even from failure you learn. So I want to talk about it. So I don't even know where to start. I feel like we humans have, well, not everyone, but most people have like this idea that they have to be chosen, whether if it's for a relationship, a job, a friendship, whatever, that you have to put yourself in like this position of being chosen. And maybe if you haven't really examined it, you might fall for like this trap that you have to bend over backwards for like the sake of being chosen. And even though it's sad, it happened to me. I went through an experience that really made me question everything. My worth, my values, I don't know, everything. And at the end of the day, it did not go where I wanted to go. But I'm so glad it didn't. I'm really glad that God didn't give me what I wanted. And throughout the whole time, I was just like losing myself. Like, now that I look back, I am like, that's not me, that's not the values that I have. I just feel like I was really letting go of my intellect and not being rational, just being pure of like just living off the idea that I needed to be chosen and I needed to be like understanding. And even though that's not inherently wrong, I think that I was navigating with the wrong idea of being understanding, and I was just negotiating my morals and my values, and it was not gonna take me anywhere good. Yeah, like, how many times have you let some things slide, stayed quiet, bent your values just because you didn't want to lose someone or something? It just happens like so softly, and you kind of convince yourself it's compromise, but deep down, like, it crosses into losing yourself. And no one is worth losing the basis of your morals, not a friendship, not a person, not a paycheck, anything, nothing. I feel like when this happens, you can really start to question like everything. You kind of like, you can be too harsh on yourself. And for me, the big step was like forgiving myself, because I was like, oh my god, how was I so stupid? Like, how did I let this happen? If I already knew about this, why did I let it happen? And what allowed me to go through it was to forgive myself. Forgiving myself was the first step, and that forgiveness to myself came through God. I was like, I really, really need to seek forgiveness from God for like forgetting myself, And I guess that after that, it becomes easier to deal with like the pain, the disappointment, and yeah, don't sit in regret, don't sit in guilt. Just like try to seek that forgiveness, forgive yourself, and move forward. It doesn't erase the past, but it allows you to walk into the future, Another thing that was quite difficult for me to understand is that not being chosen is not, it doesn't define your value. And it sounds so easy to say, but it's so true. At the end of the day, someone's choice or lack of choice doesn't really define who you are, or that you could have done this or that and that. And even though in life we do discard some people for things that they're lacking, it's not really personal. It's more of what you are seeking in that moment, and I guess with this person, they were just not in the same wavelength as me. I feel like my values were somewhere else, and that's fine. What really bothered me is that I was kind of losing those values just for the sake of being chosen, and that's what I had to forgive myself from. But it really did not define me. I feel like generally in the situation, there's nothing that I should have done more. I really want to above and beyond, in my opinion. And at the end of the day, the lack of choice was not personal. This person was just limited, and I'm not trying to be arrogant or nothing, but this person was generally limited. They were seeking other things, and I was seeking my own things based on my values, even though I almost lost them in the way. So you really, really, really have to put into perspective who you are, and who they are. And this actually brings me to the next point, that even though you don't have to take it personal or be too harsh on yourself, you can look for areas of improvement. This doesn't mean that you're accepting that you're someone that's lacking and you're the worst person, but you can look for areas of maybe I need to strengthen my morals. I need to not make them so loose so that someone can just come and take them away based on what you want and what you desire. So that's a good thing. Looking for areas of improvement. I think that in my situation, I really strengthened my relationship with God, because God is my moral compass, and I had my in my religion it's called Iman. Hadn't been so weak, maybe I shouldn't have put myself through that, So that was my area of improvement. I also needed to be more rational. I feel like in the beginning I was really losing my mind. I was I was just going crazy, I quite honestly lost my dignity. And it's okay. I have learned to forgive myself, and I learned from it. The price of my dignity was learning and growth, so it was a good deal. At the end of the day, I made it a good deal. I could have stayed in the painful part where I'm oh, what do I do now? But I think that thanks to God, I have been able to move past that. Another step, I think that it would be that you channel your energy elsewhere. And this comes in hand with looking for areas of improvement. You can improve something that even if it's not related to the situation itself, you can, I feel like you always hear that put your mind somewhere else, but I'm telling you, if you internalize that one thing that you want to improve, you can really channel it somewhere else, like a hobby or things. And something that really helped me was journaling. I love writing, even though I don't do it often. So it really helped me improve my writing or the way that I express myself. I just write everything down and I feel so good. I do like doing it. And that was a very beautiful moment for me, just like journaling. And actually, now that we're talking about it, the next point is accepting that no closure can be the closure. Because I feel like when things like this happen, even when it comes to, especially when it comes to relationships, we want that closure so bad and we chase it and we do anything to have a response. And in this situation, I was really, really tested with not having it. Even though I did have in mind the idea that sometimes you don't get closure, because it has happened to me many times, I was so focused on getting it. And I was like, I'm gonna get it. And that's where I lost my dignity. I was chasing after the closure, and I learned that someone rejecting or not giving it to you was the closure. That really defines where you are in their life, and that's okay. I think that it's really beautiful to not have that ending that you want, because it allows for you to like grow it within yourself. Like you give it its own ending, and it's very valuable. It really helped me. That's why I was journaling. I was writing everything that I wanted to tell that person. Even if I just wanted to like bend or like just explode, I would write it down. I didn't have to put myself in the situation of like losing my dignity again. And I'm not saying that having communication is losing your dignity, but sometimes people don't even deserve that energy. So, writing is a good way to like let it all out, journaling, everything. So yeah, I think that I need to do another episode on how to like accept that no closure is closure, because it's really like it can get extensive. I feel like sometimes it's a little bit hard to understand. It's also mercy to not receive closure, because sometimes that contact with someone that already hurt you, like having that contact might harm you more. So the further away, the better. And altogether, you just have to be rational. When you have feelings involved in a situation, you might lose that rational side of you, and you're just going with emotion. You're like, but this makes me happy, this makes me sad. You kind of like seek that feeling or try to avoid it. And the more you avoid it, the more bound to like fail you are. Like you lose yourself in the process of understanding the situation or the person, that you forget like, hey, if they're doing this to me, they don't deserve to be around me, or I don't deserve to be around them. Don't limit yourself, and that's how you can achieve not losing your values or not bending over. I can say that I have handled this process way better than I would have in the past. So I'm very proud of myself. I am not looking for answers. And funny enough, the least I looked for the answers, the more they arrived to me. They just came on their own. And when I got them, I wasn't like, oh wow, like maybe I should try again, I was like, I don't deserve to be around this. I think that I deserve better. And that's a beautiful way to like see things. Just being okay with not being chosen, because at the end of the day, it's not about being chosen. I feel like that's the wrong concept you should have. I think that the best way to see it is to kind of be, I don't know, like, be kind to yourself. Do not put yourself in the low position of being the one to be chosen. I think that we don't choose people out of what they can bring to the table. We don't really choose people for like things that are temporary. We choose people for what they can help us, and we help them grow. But if we limit ourselves, we will repel anything good for us. And at the end of the day, your intellect and values helps you attract the positive in your life and reject whatever is harmful. So that's why being rational and being down to earth in the situation is so important. And I guess that's my rant. It was very small, but I'm glad to be back sharing my thoughts. And yeah.